You are attending the Animal Matters Commission hearings for November, I had to look at that, for November 4th, 2024. The Animal Matters Commission was established and is conducted in accordance with Article 12 of the Anne Arundel County Code. These are administrative hearings, and by nature they are informal, which means you are not hampered by rules of evidence. However, please be aware that you are still testifying under oath. Each party will have their opportunity to state their case. After each party states their case, they will have an opportunity to ask questions of the other party. Please do not interrupt the other party. You will be given ample time to talk. In many cases, we are aware there is a history. You may briefly tell the commission about the history. However, please focus on the issue at hand. After each case, the commission will have open deliberations. During these deliberations, the public may not participate. If the commissioners have an additional question, you may answer that question. No further information will be heard and a decision will be rendered. This decision is a recommendation to the chief of police or her representative. The recommendation of the commission will be taken into consideration and a final decision will be made by the chief of police or her designated representative. If, as the defendant in this case, you are unhappy with the decision of the commission, you may appeal. For citation cases, appeals are made through the District Court of Maryland. For administrative orders, such as potentially dangerous, and vicious orders, appeals are made through the County Board of Appeals. Please call the first case.
So we actually only have one case this morning. One of them fell off. So if you are a party to Animal Care and Control versus Jamie Klassen, please use the raise hand function to join.
Those parties speaking, could you please raise your right hand and keep your hand raised? Autumn, you declare and affirm under penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Just waiting for Ms. Klassen to join. Ms. Klassen, you have to accept being promoted to panelist. And my address is 411 Maxwell Fry Road, Millersville, Maryland, 21108.
Okay, thank you.
Just
Good
waiting
morning,
for.
Ms.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't see her there. Ms. Klassen, can you hear us?
Yes.
Good morning, Ms. Clausen.
Morning.
Please raise your right hand. I can't see it.
Well, is it?
Are you
Well-
able to raise your right hand?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Clausen, do you declare and affirm under penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please state your name and address for the record.
Jamie Clausen, 3501 Locker and Court, B, Pasadena, Maryland, 21122.
Thank you, Ms. Clausen.
Did we get an affirmative
Okay.
to the first question?
Yes. The swearing in.
I'm going to repeat it. Do you
Okay.
declare and affirm under penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is an appeal of a designation of reckless owner, so we will start with the county.
Okay. All evidence in this case is reference to Crunchy, a 3-year-old altered male black and white rat terrier type. On April 19th, 2022, Crunchy was involved in a mild bite to Dawn Quasey. At this time, the 10-day quarantine was conducted, and a follow-up health check was done. On March 17th, 2023, Crunchy was involved in an unprovoked severe bite to Melody Sigmund. Crunchy at this time was not at large, but being walked on a leash by a child. After further review, investigations, and affidavits of complaint, a warning letter was issued for Crunchy on July 18th, 2023. This year, on August 28th, 2024, Crunchy was involved in another mild bite to Leslie Gelfert. The bite occurred while on a leash, passing each other in the doorway. A couple weeks later, on September 12th, I received several affidavits of complaint from Anastasia Freeman and Victor Freeman in regards to a public safety threat, animal running at large, and animal disturbance for Crunchy. I was also provided a video that confirmed the complaints, which I'm going to play for you now. One second. Then September 13th, 2024, a PDO was placed on Crunchy and we implemented the dog. After multiple inspections, guidance, and resources given to Ms. Klassen and opportunities to be in compliance, she was in compliance with the order. On October 8th, she redeemed Crunchy, and Animal Care and Control provided her with a muzzle for Crunchy until hers came in the mail. On not even 24 hours after redemption, a video was provided to myself showing Ms. Klassen with the dog outside with the muzzle taken off. It was determined by Animal Care and Control that Ms. Klassen was not going to comply even after many attempts to work with her. On October 9th, we impounded Crunchy and designated Ms. Klassen as a reckless owner. Ms. Klassen appealed the order, and on follow-up on October 24th, I asked her if she still had the muzzle that we provided to her so that she would be in full compliance. She stated that it was on her kitchen counter. I then asked her, why did she take the muzzle off? Her dog, she stated that he kept trying to paw it off his face, so she just took it off. And then she then stated that is why she picked him up and carried him inside. I told her if at any point in time that she lost control of Crunchy, that it could have been devastating. I then told her that because she intentionally took the muzzle off Crunchy was why she was in violation of the order. I asked her then to bring the muzzle back to Animal Care and Control, and she said, okay. I'm going to play the video that I was provided that shows that she took the muzzle off on October 9th. 1 second. Can you still see the video that's playing?
No, we can't. Okay, perhaps it was just me, but I never saw a dog in that video. Did anyone else see the dog in the video?
No, that's because there was none with these people that she speaks of.
I thought I saw a dog being carried.
Oh,
Okay, so maybe we didn't go far enough back in the video. Gotcha. Can we go back to the very beginning of that video? Okay, thank you. Did anyone else need to see that again?
I don't see Crunchy at all. That
Ma'am, you'll have an opportunity to talk in just a second, okay? I just
Okay.
want to, Ms. Cortez, is there anything else for the county's case?
No.
Did any commissioners have questions for Ms. Cortez, Officer Cortez? Dr. Hemmer?
Yeah. Hey, Autumn, could you just give me the dates of violation that you have on record that you just presented? I missed the first two. Thank you.
So, or April 19th, 2022, March 17th, 2023. Warning letter was issued July 18th, 2023. August 28th, 2024. And then I apologize, September 12th, 2024. And then October 9th, 2024.
Thank you.
Okay, any other, Jackie?
Yes. What is the date of that video?
October 9th. So
The first video was September 12th and the second one was October 9th, correct?
Yes. The second video was less than 24 hours after she redeemed Crunchy from the shelter after being in compliance with the order and provided a muzzle from our shelter as well.
And to be clear, before the potentially dangerous order was issued, there was it 2 human bites that were, is that one of the first 2 from April or July? Were they both bites to a human?
I think Autumn has frozen. Give her just a second.
Sorry, my internet keeps going down now. What was that question again?
I asked, were the violations or the incidences before the PDO? There was multiple. Were all those bites to humans, or were any of those bites to animals as well? I saw there was at least 2 bites. I thought 2 bite reports. I saw.
There was 3 bite reports, all to humans, and then the video that showed Crunchy running at large. The dog was trying to attack another dog.
Thank you.
So
Was the video in the hallway, correct?
The first video was when they were coming in the building and Crunchy got out from his residence and bolted outside. So it was outside.
Okay.
Do you need
And
me
I'm
to
assuming
replay
that's
that video?
I'm assuming that's an apartment complex, correct?
Condos.
Yes. Condos.
Okay. Condos. Gotcha. Thank you. Anything else for the county? Any other questions for Officer Cortez? All right, Ms. Clausen, what would you like to tell the commission?
So, currently, sorry, I'm in the hospital. I broke my back. But shouldn't interrupt this.
Wait, ma'am, before you continue, you said you were in the hospital?
I am.
Are you currently under any medication that may impair your ability to testify today?
No. No, I'm fine. The people, Victor, and whatever his daughter's name is, Freeman, they, if you don't notice in that video where he's being carried, because what happened was went to get the basket muzzle. They didn't have Crunchy size. He needed the extra small. So when I went to pick him up from the shelter, they said, okay, here's this little mesh one to use on him until yours comes in the mail. When he was out there and he was just doing this, that's when I picked him up because I was almost at my residence at that time. Victor Freeman has no business on that floor that he's on recording because he doesn't live on that floor. It's almost like they're staging it, including with their dog too. There's been an issue. My sister passed away and left 4 children, and they live in that building. People assume that I am that sister and have started a whole bunch of stuff as far as I've had to take him to court at least 4 times already.
Pam, can we just stick to the issue of whether or not the dog was muzzled on the day in question? I mean, because the only issue here really for the commission is whether or not you violated that order. If your dog Pudgy was outside without a muzzle on. So can we go back to that, just the part where we saw you walking and carrying the dog? Tell us what happened there.
Well, when he had pulled it off, and like I said, they were standing there. So, of course, it's going to get him going. That's why I picked him up and was maybe 5 feet or less from my residence to walk him in. Yes, he did have the muzzle on. Yes, he did get it off going in the door. With it not being the basket, I wasn't sure, at that point what to do because he just kept, just taking it off. So that's why I picked him up and carried him, and we were in the door within a couple minutes or seconds, actually.
You said he got the muzzle off, or did you take the muzzle off?
No, he took his paw off and he pulled it off.
Okay. Did any commission members have questions for Ms. Clausen? Jackie?
Thank you. Ms. Clausen, I'm sorry to hear about you being in the hospital. Who's taking care of Crunchy now while you're there?
My stepfather's there. There's a 16 and a 14-year-old there. He's not there. He's at the shelter again.
Right,
So
Jackie,
Okay,
he's been
thank you.
impounded.
Thank you. I didn't realize that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I guess I don't know. It could be for either party, I guess. But on October 24th, you said you were going to return the muzzle to animal control. Was that done at the time? Was the dog impounded on that day?
Yeah,
had
we impounded Crunchy on the 9th. She had the 10-day notice, and on October 22nd is when she appealed. When she came in to visit on the 24th is when I asked her, if she still had the muzzle, and she said that she would bring it back. So it hasn't been brought back to my knowledge.
Has not been brought back, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd be interested to see the actual muzzle. That's the only reason I'm asking. Obviously, I don't think in the hospital she's going to be able to show us. And if you had it at animal control, maybe we could see exactly what we're talking about here. But I'd be interested to see how easily a dog, I mean, you guys use those muzzles all the time. I'd be interested to see how easy it would be for a dog to pull that type of muzzle off versus maybe a basket muzzle. That's all.
I do know that our vet techs, made sure that the muzzle was secure, made sure that it was the proper one, that it fit prior to her leaving.
Nicole, you had a question?
Yeah, question for Autumn. On your ADS sheet, the supplemental, it states very clearly that Ms. Clausen removed the muzzle herself and the dog didn't. So I'd like to hear your statement of that fact.
So when she came in on the 24th, I asked her, like why the dog wasn't wearing the muzzle. She said that the dog was pawing at it and kept trying to take it off, so that she took it off herself. Um, it was just that the dog kept doing this, messing with it, and because it was bothersome, she took it off.
He does get them off.
Okay, but Ms. Clausen, the issue is whether or not at that point, when the video was taken, whether or not the dog had taken it off or you had taken it off. And Officer Cortez's statement is that you told her you had taken it off at that point.
No, I wouldn't take it off if it wasn't already off and, violate him and have him taken away again. That's just doesn't make any sense. Why would I do that? No, I wasn't just like, oh, he can get it off, so let me take it off. He was at the point that he was pulling it off. So that's, like I said, why I picked him up when I knew he could get it off. Because he would have been walking had it not been for the fact that he could get it off.
Okay. Ms. Clausen, is there anything else you'd like to tell the commission before we close for deliberations?
I would. I have video of these neighbors harassing Crunchy, harassing the kids when they're outside with him, and actually telling my mother that they will not leave him alone. They antagonize him, and then they want to call and make complaints to animal control that I have to pay for to save my dog.
Ma'am, do you have video ready for us to watch today?
I can certainly get it to you today.
No, I meant for right now during the hearing. Do you have anything that you would like us to see now during the hearing?
I mean, I would have to have the time to go through and pull them up and get them, but I mean, I'd love for you to see them, but they didn't give me that as an option. Like I mean,
is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the day in question, the incident we're here talking about today, the day that the muzzle was off the dog after the order was issued?
I will say this, I did not remove the muzzle from the dog. Crunchy removed the muzzle. And in all fairness, I appreciate the fact that animal control did let him go, even though it was not the proper muzzle that he was supposed to have, since they knew he could get it off. But that's all I really can say. I've spent a fortune on this dog to save him from all of this. So I wouldn't try to jeopardize it by taking the muzzle off. That's what I'll say.
Dr. Hemmer, you had a question?
Yeah, the probably the more fundamental issue that I'm having is the muzzle was a loaner from Animal Care and Control until you received the appropriate muzzle in the mail. Have you since received that? The correct muzzle?
Yes.
Okay. And when did you get it?
I got it. They had come out and gotten him in less than 24 hours, and I got it the following day that he would have been home.
So that would have been October 10th, correct?
Yes. So you were in possession of the correct muzzle when this video was taken?
No.
Okay.
No. The correct muzzle was sent out. It came the day after that video was made.
Okay. But you're in possession of that muzzle as we speak this morning, correct?
I am.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from commission members before we close for deliberations?
I do have some additional to add prior to closing. If that's okay.
Yes,
So
go ahead.
I understand Ms. Klassen's side of things. My biggest, I didn't play the full video from the other one because there was a lot of cussing. But in all the evidence we have, all the videos, not once does she apologize. Not once does she say, I'm sorry that this happened. In fact, she tells them to go F themselves on video. She's taken no accountability to the many bites. And if you watch the full video and the second video, going straight to the house, into her apartment, she sits there and pauses while Crunchy's trying to get out of her arms to go after them. You know, we wouldn't have let her leave here with a muzzle that the dog could easily gotten off. We would have kept Crunchy here until the proper muzzle came in. So, you know, based off what she told me on the 24th is that he was trying to get it off. So she just took it off and figured that carrying him in the house would be okay. To her pausing at the stairway instead of just going straight into her house, it lets us know that she doesn't really care, and that she's not going to be accountable. And Crunchy is going to bite somebody else if we let the dog go back to her.
Okay. I'm going to disagree right there because Victor Freeman does not live in that building. Therefore, what business did he have even recording me in my own building? And apologize to him? Would you like to know what he has said to 4 children in regards to starting this war? I have a niece that's gay.
Okay, I don't want to, ma'am, we're going way far afield here. I understand that you're responding to Officer Cortez's comments, but I'd like your responses to stick to your accountability and what you feel you've done to take control of the situation and be responsible. Ma'am, you're muted.
If I was not responsible or I wanted him to get to Victor Freeman, I wouldn't have picked him up. I wouldn't have made sure that there was no chance that he could get to them. Crunchy is unfortunately the one that's been suffering through all this. He did nothing that day. He didn't try to bite anybody. He didn't try to do anything. He simply was recorded pawing a muzzle off, and then I walked into my residence. I don't want Crunchy to bite anybody. I don't want Crunchy to be taken away from myself or the 4 kids that I'm raising that are not mine. Crunchy, myself, and the kids actually just want to be left alone by the people in the building, not cause any harm, and not anything to say, you know, towards Autumn about apologizing, but she's also not seeing what he's doing prior or what recorded information he's sending her and saying to me. The difference is, you know, I'm not going to let his words get to me when I'm fighting so hard for something that I love and that I've spent a lot of money to keep doing this.
I would like to also note that it was not Victor Freeman that recorded the second video. It was the daughter and her mother who do reside there. I just want to make that.
Victor was behind.
Okay, all right. Okay, wait. We're not gonna lose control of the hearing here. I don't want any more back and forth. Is there any new factual information related to the charges in this case?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so hearing none at this point, unless there's any objection, I am going to close the hearing for deliberations.
Okay, okay.
Okay, I'm just gonna go with how things are arranged on my screen. So Tom,
I mean, to get to the brass tacks, I guess. I mean, if we have no direct visual evidence that the dog did not pull the muzzle off, I have a hard time maybe upholding the order. I mean, looking at the litany of things that have happened prior, including a warning letter that apparently there was no heed taking to that warning letter. You know, the day after this is happening, the dog, you know, I haven't seen what this muzzle looks like. I'm not familiar with muzzles very much. I mean, I've never used one on any of my dogs, so I don't know how easy it would be for a dog to pull one off. But you know, I think that it's possible that you know, that the lady did speak to Miss Cortez and say that she did that. I don't know, but I have a hard time with the he said she said being able to uphold this specific thing. And she did have the dog in her hands, and she was trying to get back into her house apparently. Maybe not quite as fast as she should have, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm happy to discuss, but it's kind of tough without something very specific. I just don't like, I don't like where, you know, we have this long list of bites and other things that happen. We have warning letters, and while, you know, she's sitting here telling us now that you know, she's putting all this time and energy and money into trying to save this dog. There was a long time there since April 2022 where things could have changed and nothing did. I know that's, you know, it's kind of beyond what we're talking about here, beyond the scope, but that's kind of what I'm thinking.
just to answer your question about the mesh muzzles, before my dogs passed, I had two rather large dogs, and I used those. I had those mesh muzzles for them, and the only time that I was able to see them slide it off is if I didn't have it secured tight enough in the back. If it's secured properly, I'd never seen them be able to get out of them. But it's basically just a mesh sleeve that slides over the
And it's
dogs.
like I would assume it's like a nylon strap that you tighten down or something like that.
Yes.
That's what I would assume. So I mean, those things usually you need to pry against to be able to slide to get them loose. That's why, I mean, the dog has a somewhat longish muzzle as opposed to like a pug or something like that. So I would think it would not be simple to get that muzzle off. That's kind of how I feel, but you know, I wasn't there, and the video doesn't clearly show one way or the other. And that's kind of, unfortunately, I feel like, because I do think that all the evidence shows that this person's not been extremely responsible. I just feel like if we're here because the muzzle came off and we don't know how, I don't know how we can uphold it, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Hemmer?
Thank you. I guess I want to take a little bit of a different direction than Tom went in. As I'm understanding it, what we're looking at is Ms. Clausen appealing the designation of being a reckless owner. So while I think all this discussion about whether or not the muzzle was on the dog on any given day, I think it's beyond the scope of what we're tasked with to address this morning. And reading the subsections under reckless owner designation, I think that animal controls provided ample evidence that she is violated Article 12 at least 3 or more times, separate times, in the 24-month period. And based on that, I think we have to uphold or deny the uphold the that she is a reckless owner based on what I'm reading and what I'm hearing. While I think the non-compliance with the recently issued PDO, I think it's something to debate. In deference to Tom, no disrespect, I don't think it's germane to what we're tasked to look at today. So
No, and I agree with what you're saying totally. I just was under the impression that the reason we're here, the reason this order was issued, you know, I can't think of, I'm drawing a blank here. The unfit owner, I thought that was brought because of this last final charge. I would say even without that, before the PDO, again, I would agree with what you just said, Dr. Hemmer.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that it hadn't been issued until that point. And I thought that's kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's why we need to include that in the designation. But I would say, to your point, I would agree with you totally.
Yeah, I see the
I
perspective
had the
you're
same
coming from now,
confusion,
Tom.
Tom. I thought,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tom, I had the same confusion. I thought this was being brought at this point because the muzzle incident today was the third incident that would trigger the reckless animal designation. But after going back and looking at the list of violations that were presented, I think Dr. Hemmer is correct, and the third one was met prior to this incident. I apologize, Dr. Hemmer, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, quite all right. And thank you for that clarification, Tom. I now appreciate your point of view on the discussion this morning. And I think you're right, but as I stated earlier, I think it's beyond the scope of what we're addressing here. And I think the reckless owner designation should stand, is my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, Jackie?
Just simply, I didn't hear anything from Ms. Clausen to support her appeal, and I think the reckless owner should stand.
Thank you. Officer Herbert?
Sorry about that, guys. I agree.
She's not a voting. She was just here to swear me in. I apologize.
Okay, my apologies. I'm just going across on my screen. Lieutenant Tillman.
Good morning. The defendant, Ms. Clausen, did not bring any information to the table to explain why she'd have these reasonable explanations why it should be lifted from it. So yeah, I agree that we should not overturn the decision from earlier.
Thank you. Nicole?
All right, so obviously there's a whole lot of drama here and it's absolutely unnecessary. The lack of accountability is very clear. The PDO was warranted. She agreed with the PDO, and that was the only reason that she was allowed to take Crunchy home. I have full faith and trust in Anne Arundel County Animal Care and Control vet techs. I believe that the professionals there would not have allowed Crunchy to go home if prior to the basket muzzle coming in, if they had any indication that a little dog was going to be able to remove a muzzle on his own. I believe that it was stated to Autumn that she took the muzzle off, and I believe that this is the definition of a reckless owner.
Okay, well, I'm not sure after listening to all that I have anything to add. After reviewing the prior citations, I think this probably should have come sooner. I do sympathize with Ms. Clausen. She's clearly had some difficult things going on in her personal life, but I believe the reckless owner designation is warranted. So can I get a motion?
Yeah, I'd move to uphold.
I second,
second.
Tom. Sorry.
I have a question though, if I may, please.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this is to Autumn and doesn't have to do with our decision making here, but what happens with Crunchy now with Miss Clausen in the hospital and unable to care for him?
Well, if it's upheld that she's a reckless owner, she can't own any animals for 4 years. But she does have the option to appeal this decision. Once we have to send the recommendation to the chief of police, get that back, and then she'll have 30 days to appeal to the Board of Appeals.
Thank you.
Okay,
I
just to
wanna-
clarify, I apologize, but just to clarify, you're saying that this is already an appeal, so she can appeal the appeal?
Yeah, so that's the process with the administrative designations or orders. So it gets the commission, chief of police, yay or nays. And then if they still want to fight it, the next step would take it to the Board of Appeals. It's $250 for them to do that. It just kind of.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I understand. So it goes to another party, not through us.
Not through us, no.
All right, thank you.
Just real quick, I know we have a motion on the floor, and before we vote on that motion, I just want to point out that Tom, actually, I think your discussion, I'm actually glad you brought up the discussion the way you did, because according to the statute, the 3 violations have to be within a 24-month period. And if I'm not mistaken, the first one was April 19th, 2022. So that would have been outside, if we're counting this last one with the muzzle, that would have been outside the 24-month period. So I do think this muzzle incident was necessary to be the third incident in order to qualify as a reckless owner under the statute. I just wanted to put that on the record since this may end up getting appealed again. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All right, thank you.
And then I know you guys were gonna discuss the changes. Miss Claudia Roll is here, so I
I
will
see you today.
turn myself off and turn it over to you guys.
Yep. And Ms. Roll, I owe you an apology because I stated at the last meeting that I hadn't seen you attend one yet. I didn't realize that you were in attendance behind the scenes because I'm used to seeing folks on the screen. But we've been trying to discuss this for some time now. I think August was our first attempt. Here we are in November. So I hope by now everyone has had a chance to review the proposed operational framework draft that was sent out along with the position paper. So I guess we're just going to open up the floor for discussion at this point. Real quick, Autumn, for your minutes purposes, is there a certain order that you would like us to take this in just to make it easier for you?
No, I can adapt. However you go about it is how I'll type it up.
Okay, fantastic. Would anyone like to open the discussion? Well, how about Ms. Roll? Since you are the head of animal control now, I assume you have some feelings one way or the other on the proposals.
Well, I do, certainly. So what the possibilities that were laid out by County Exec Pittman and working group way before I started and has continued since then, options including keeping it as is with the police department. As far as that issue goes, I feel like being with the police department really is holding us back, and budget wise we get buried in the police department. But really, I mean, I have to say they've been super helpful to me, and we use their personnel, their IT, there's administrative things that are a big benefit. It's also in the field. When I took this job and I mentioned to some of my colleagues that I've worked with over the years, like, oh yeah, we're in the police department. They were like, really, still? So it's a trend to move away from animal care and control being part of a police department. We tend to be a square peg with any other department. It's common to be with the health department because there is a connection, just like there is a connection with enforcement with the police department. Other options, it is still being discussed that we be a standalone county department that would bring on more resources for the county, but that is seriously being discussed. And then that other plan, the quasi-government of splitting care and control, leaving animal control with the police department, splitting off the animal care piece and making it a quasi-government, essentially a 501c3, but with a very strong tether to the county government. That's what was really being pushed. I honestly don't know if that's going to happen at this point. There's splitting care and control there's real issues there. And it's just, and then there have been, we've talked to county council people, and people are worried about that it may, even if the county continues to pay to budget for the animal care piece, will that continue into the future? So there's, I didn't really come here to tell all of you what I want to do, but I can answer any questions. Yes.
Dr. Henry?
Dr.
Yeah,
Howard.
good morning, Claudia. I think the question that I have sitting as a commission member, the veterinary component of the commission member, is how will any of these plans discussed, even getting to the point where animal care and control is a standalone county department, how does that impact the functioning of the Animal Matters Commission? I mean, and especially if it gets split up between care and control, will we become obsolete? You know, is there a potential that we would be
No.
a standalone judicial entity in our own, that we don't have to, once we decide something, we don't have to go through the chief of police or his deputies to have our decisions verified, if you will, for lack of a better way of describing it? I guess, how do these different structures impact our functioning and legitimacy, I guess, is my question.
That's a good question. The commission will not become obsolete. In some of the working groups, it came up. Well, like, what about the Animal Matters Commission? And it's just, it was just like, oh, well, we still need them. What may change is right now it goes up to the chief. So that piece could change, but I don't have an answer to, with each scenario, exactly how it would play out.
Okay.
There's commitment throughout the county government, though, that this commission is important and is necessary.
Okay. Thank you, Claudia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess one thing that I've thought of, or has come to my attention, would be, again, as far as the commission goes, is if we have a dog that's brought in on a vicious order or something like that, and if it were to go quasi, or any of the things that you mentioned, how would the police be able to work with the shelter to maintain the dog? Like, would there be separate? I know the way it's set up now, there's kind of separate areas for the dogs now, but the staffing and all for those things, it would be split. It would be kind of odd. It just seems like, I don't know if this is as much of a question as much as a comment to, if you have animals that are being held for trial, for lack of a better term, how can they be maintained differently? Is the space going to be different? I think that's something to think about.
Yeah, and to add on to that, Tom, that is something that I thought through. Like right now, care and control, we're working together. A dog comes in, cat comes in, and for different scenarios, what care do they need? What's the status of a case? And it seems to me a little naive that even if that is working well now, that if this split happens down the road, who knows, years down the road, that scenario really depends on essentially two administrators working very well together, really well together. So I hear what you're saying, Tom, and there's risk to that. My understanding is if there was that split, we would all still be working in this building. There wouldn't be different housing for these case dogs.
Okay. I have a budget question.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that some concerns were raised that if shelter operations were made its own nonprofit, well, a nonprofit in the sense of being like a quasi-government or agency like AAEDC, there's still, it still has to be funded. And I know I completely get and totally sympathize with animal control being buried in the police department budget. I get it. It's not one of, that the two missions are very distinct. And when the budget's being put forth, animal control is not one of the police department's, priorities. They have other things that they have to focus on. But I also know similar organizations like Barks. Like 80% of their operational budget is, fundraising. Only about 20% is provided by the county. So
That's a really good
how
example.
how do you envision that working under that type of scenario? Obviously there would be a shift. I feel like we would be heavily, or animal control would be incredibly, number one, vulnerable, but two, increasingly reliant on friends of Anne Arundel County Animal Control. Although I guess the shelter itself actually maybe Friends would become obsolete because the shelter itself could raise funds then as its own 501c3. We wouldn't need a separate fundraising arm. But do you see it as realistic for animal control to be able to pull in? And I get it, no final numbers have been talked, but you'd have to assume somewhere between 70 and 80% of its budget from outside fundraising.
Yeah, the example of Barks, and I brought that up internally shortly after I started, because this really started coming out in the media and in the Gazette when I was prepping for my second interview. And the closest thing to what that one proposal is Barks. And I've spoken with their executive director. I've known her a little bit over the years. I was very surprised at how little Baltimore City was contributing to that budget. And I brought that up, and I was very clear in that percentage not being acceptable here if that plan goes forward. Because that's where the risk is. Like, fundraising comes and goes. It's very competitive. There are dollars out there, but the county should contribute what they have been contributing. And if we went this quasi model, fundraising could then really allow for more growth. And when I say growth, I really mean public programs, programs to keep pets with families and keeping them out of the shelter.
Jackie.
Thank you. Good morning, Claudia. It's nice to meet you finally.
Yes.
And welcome to Anne Arundel.
Thank you.
And I would just briefly tell you that my first career was 20 years in animal welfare and animal control management.
Oh.
Yes. That was a long time ago, 70s to 90s. So during some really difficult times. And I eventually got to where I took contracts with agencies to go in and fix their problems. And so with that, I've had the advantage of working under all three of the different proposals, those kinds of setups. And I honestly can't break it down to one being better than the other. So I'm wondering if now that you've had some time here with us, with Anne Arundel, do you have some ideas for improving on the way it is now without having to make any drastic changes on the actual organization and models? But can we improve on what we have now?
There's a lot of improvements we can make now. Our animals are here too long, so length of stay at a shelter is huge. It's huge for each animal. It's huge for the population. Intake is really, I don't even think it's back to pre-pandemic levels, but adoptions have stagnated across the country. So it creates this imbalance where we are over capacity, either at capacity, which is a huge stressor for the animals and every staff member and the volunteers. So a key is little ways we can lower length of stay every day, rounds. What does this animal need today? Like, what should have happened yesterday that could have moved them along faster? So there's a lot of things like that where we can make improvements. But I will tell you, I do think there will be a structural change. Something's going to happen.
Understandably, yes.
Yeah, that's just it's what the county exec wants. There's attention to it with the council as well. So yeah.
Thank you.
In terms of it, like Jackie's question of like things we can do to, like now that to avoid any type of drastic change. When I'm looking at this model, one of the things, I guess, just as a pet owner and stuff, when I'm looking at 3 different places, like I'm going to go here to get my cats relicensed, but if I had an enforcement issue, I'm going to go over here. And then if I wanted to go adopt a pet, I'm going to go. I was just looking at that thinking that, I didn't know how difficult that would be since, one of the issues with every one of the cases this commission hears is, one of the things that's usually reported on our agenda is whether or not the animal is licensed. So that now, again, requires cooperation. But if we were to go to a model like this, would things like shelter software, which I know that, animal care and control, that's kind of been in the works for several years now, but having good shelter software, is that the kind of thing that you would see that could facilitate a transition like this? I mean, like make it work, or do you still see, because like I said, look at in most people's minds, when you think of animal control, it would encompass all of these things. Like the average person, I don't think is going to realize they'd have to go to inspections and permits to get their cat licensed. That to me just isn't, it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be my first thought anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. A few things there. So the licensing, IMP never actually took it over. It is still happening here. And the director of that department and I spoke, he was in agreement with me that they shouldn't take it on. I think when they really learned what was involved with all of the licenses and everything, they were like, no, Claudia, you keep that. So, we will be keeping it, and we will be getting the animal care position back. That was there was a vacant position that was put over there, so we'll be getting that back. And then, tell me again, what did you start with?
Whether or not
systems.
implementing the shelter software would streamline, but you've sort of answered part of that question. Well,
Yeah.
not that I don't think the shelter software is important, but I'm just saying, managing things like licenses. I'm glad to hear that that's coming back
Yeah.
to
But the
animal control. But
software, regardless of which model we have, if we stay the same, we need new software. I'm in the process of writing a recommendation that and I was really impressed that our IT department had done a lot of research. They sent me a lot of things. I'm familiar with various softwares. So I'm in the process of writing a recommendation that we go with Shelter Buddy. But again, regardless of which of these models happens, we need proper management software. And so what I looked at, and even if we split, care and control would need to use the same software. So there's another area that we have to collaborate. So we need a software that's good both for animal management in the shelter, as well as foster, honestly, and doing a good job of helping field services. So Roger and I spoke about a couple of the different softwares. So, and Jackie, it gets back to what can we do to, just ramp things up here. It's key. It's key. The county developed software. It's just not where it needs to be. So, and I think they know it. I don't think I'm insulting them.
Yeah, I think I agree. I'm glad to hear that the licensing is going to stay. I think that, to me, from my background, and I wish I had computer services back then. We did everything by hand.
We kind of do too right now.
Well, and in one of my contracts, I was dealing with 3 different counties out of one shelter. So that was always a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah.
With 3 different sets of laws and policies. But back to my thought that, to me, animal control and care as it is needs to maintain as much control as possible. And the thought of having to rely heavily on donations is very, very, very scary.
Yeah, that's a lot of the feedback that stakeholders have given. Mhm.
Because then that means that you and other key people are going to have to spend a lot of your time and focus on the dollars rather
Mhm.
than the management of the animals and the staff.
Yeah. Agreed.
Lieutenant Tillman, I'm just curious, as you know, since you are our one of our police representatives on the commission, if you had any opinion about the proposed changes, since obviously one of the discussions was taking animal control out from underneath the police department.
I'm actually on the fence either way. I see pros and cons on both sides. So I think that's a pretty political answer there.
Yeah, and if we did move away from the police department, we'd have to develop an MOU. There's just you can't just cut the line. Like there's connections we have all the time. So
Yeah,
just like we have an MOU with the health department, it would be similar.
I think the biggest nexus with us is the charging aspect of it, as well
Yeah.
as the chief. As is written now, the chief is the arbiter of the decisions for the appeals. I think that's really the only nexus with us.
Mhm.
It gives maybe a little extra added security, I guess, where it feels like the animal care control officers actually go out and do the enforcement sections of it, or do the surveys of the area. A little more legitimacy, if that makes sense, because they have the enforcement branch of the government on their side. They could also accomplish the same thing too, where just calling 911 if there's an issue. But this way, I think kind of eliminates the middleman because they can actually talk to us directly with the radios.
True.
Gotcha. Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a little bit, there's more teeth behind it when it's the police department enforcing. I guess, one of the concerns that I have heard in the past, though, is that it really restricts hiring because you're going, you have the same protocols to meet that you would for an officer, whereas somebody who would make a good animal control technician or a management aide or a support specialist doesn't necessarily need the same type of screening that someone for the police department would be. And so that I've heard over the years that it really ties animal control's hands in hiring, and it limits your available pool of
Good news.
potential candidates.
Good news on that. Last month, I got permission for animal care and control to use the regular county background check. So there's still a criminal background check, there's the drug testing. So the police department's background check that does, for very good reason, take a really long time. We are no longer using it. We are using the background check that the rest of the county uses. And that has been, because we've had some really key vacancies. I have 2 new people starting on Thursday, our new kennel supervisor and our the management aide that does foster and volunteer and events. She will be starting, and we made an offer to our next veterinarian. I'm waiting on a start date. So that's speeding along as well. So it's been a huge help, but that is really
I'm just stunned. That was as simple as an ask.
big victory. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I was going
I
to say, in
got-
the past, it had been explained to me very differently. I did not think that because animal control was under the police department, that it could be done so easily. I mean, I'm tickled that it has, because I know that's really untied your hands. I'm just a little
Yeah.
stunned that
I made a case for it and it was approved.
okay, fantastic.
Great. These are the things that I was thinking of, when
Yeah,
I
that's a
asked
good
about
example,
what can
Jackie.
we improve on now,
Yep.
changing within the system, different ways of doing it. And so now, if I remember correctly, part of the problem with being with the police department, which to me, when I manage animal control, I wanted that connection with the police department.
Mhm.
But apparently there seems to be some slowdown, I guess, between like the commission's decisions going on to the chief of police. Can we shortcut that somehow by having the chief designate someone else within the department to work with the commission and with animal control to take that off of his plate?
Her plate, and I mean, we could, it's up to her. I have not approached her with that at this point. I'm 3 months in, so, yeah, it's certainly a possibility. I don't know exactly how she feels about it, if she's, determined to be that final say or not, or, maybe it's, one of the deputies or,
Yeah, because when I had that connection with the police department in my agencies, we had somebody who was designated within the department who was my go-to person.
Yeah.
Who would then, and we had a commission as well, similar to what we have now.
yeah. The
So
law
we
says she
work-
can designate someone.
Yeah.
It's there, so.
That seems a terribly reasonable way to go.
Mhm.
How can
Um,
we help?
I guess at this point though, for the commission's purposes, I feel like since we are discussing this so late because it took us so long to get this on the table at a meeting, that some of the things in this proposal obviously are no longer issues, like licensing is not leaving. Employment issues clearly have started to change. So I don't want to waste our members' times. We're all volunteers here. I guess discussing things that have already changed. So, but in order to I guess have a cohesive position on what remains, apparently still up for grabs in these proposed changes. What I'm hearing is pros and cons on pretty much everything except making the shelter some type of quasi nonprofit governmental agency. That was the only thing that I really heard significant agreement among folks here today that, that's not an idea that we would support. Other than that, everything else seemed to, like I said, be pros and cons on both sides. Does that sort of sum it up correctly? Am I missing? I'm just trying to get a handle on, on the commission's position. At some point, somebody's going to ask, or maybe they're not because so much of this has changed and we're going to get handed another proposal and position paper. I just wanted to make sure that I'm clearly understanding this, that except for the quasi-governmental agency that has everyone concerned over budget, everything else could go either way. Is that correct? Okay, I'm not hearing any opposition, so I'm going to assume I have
Well-
that right. I guess somebody will tell me if I don't.
Yeah. Jennifer,
Um,
to me right now, because Claudia is new to Anne Arundel County, and she seems to be really making some good progress along a lot of these lines, that I would say that we would entrust her opinion and her work to continue to try to iron out whatever problems there are and continue, but to voice our concern about, like you said, the fundraising issue, that if animal control and care needs to start depending on public money, on donations and all, that is going to take a lot away from the staff's ability to do their jobs. And because it would be, then they would be so dependent on the dollar, and that can change from year to year as to how many dollars are available based on just how many dollars are given by the public to the shelter and animal control. I don't know if that made sense.
no, absolutely. And I think, that's the one area where we are in agreement that that would be a concern for us and not an ideal change to be made to animal care. But everything else proposed, like I said, there were pros and cons to both. Anything else significant within these proposals that you don't feel like we talked about today? Any new proposals or suggestions that any of you think weren't included in this that should have been?
Was really happy to hear that everybody thinks the commission is important.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. No doubt.
So we lost Tom. He needs to be re-promoted as a panelist. He may have some input here for this.
I've been trying
Oh,
to
you know,
promote him.
oh, I thought he just had to go. I guess. Oh, and now I'm seeing the comment. Tom, I am so terribly sorry.
It's okay. I had some internet issues. Back in with my phone for a minute. I had to go outside, and I've been listening, and so I think I've caught up with most of all you guys have been talking about, and I'm pretty much on board with everything you all are saying. I think that generally speaking, again, I like to see Claudia. I'm glad she's in her position, and she for the last 3 months has been looking into all these things. I know she's met with some people at the health department specifically. Again, we always work together, between these animal bites and our nursing staff. There's other things there that have really nothing to do with this commission. So, I'm overall, I'm excited to kind of see where all this goes. I think it's good to know that the hiring issue is kind of has been taken care of. That's a big thing I know with you guys. Again, I heard what you were saying, Jennifer, pros and cons on either side, kind of on all the issues. I don't see anything major, anything else that I need to add though.
Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone sticking around to talk about this. I'm sorry that it's taken so long. Next time, someone sends me something, I'll make sure I get it over to Autumn for distribution. I apologize because back in August, I thought it was sent to everybody. I didn't realize it was only sent to me. So I guess with that, and we have minutes to do, don't we, Autumn? Okay.
You have to vote on adjournment, like closing out and everything. Motions for that. Oh, the minutes from last time. Did everyone get a chance to see the minutes from last month? And then we need to vote on those.
So
I
I
make
saw
a
that I
motion
wasn't
we-
here last month. I can't remember if that means can I still vote on those last month meetings if I wasn't there?
No, not if you
No.
weren't there. 'Cause you
I make
can't
a
verify
motion-
their accuracy.
I
But
make a
I'm
motion
pretty
we accept
sure.
the minutes, last month's minutes.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, and one abstention. And then is there anything else we need to cover for today? All right,
I think we're in good
fantastic.
shape. Great.
All right, I will see everyone next month. Thank you.
Yep. Everyone have a
I
good
make a
month. Take
motion
care.
to adjourn.
Bye.
Yeah, we have to do the motion to
Don't forget
adjourn.
to go vote.
I second.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
If you
First?
happen